Hey guys, this is Evan Summers. Dana is not here with us tonight, but of course Jennifer is. This is our regular weekly essential oils class. Today is a little bit of a departure from strictly essential oils. We're going to talk a little bit about sleep. And even though most of what we talk about is designed to be brand neutral, we keep it as far away from touting or advertising specific essential oils companies. A big portion of this class tonight has come as a result of the doTERRA annual convention that Jennifer and I attended 2 weeks ago. So the slides I'm going to show you, I actually lifted from that presentation. I want to give credit where credit is due during this. And then we're going to open it up to open discussion, talking about sleep, talking about what essential oils everybody uses to help get a restful night's sleep, and why, and hopefully this presentation will shed some light on why that is so important and how we can make some changes to help impact our sleep in a more positive fashion. So for those of you that are watching the replay, whether it's on Facebook or watching on YouTube, thank you, as always, for being here. We do this class every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern. It's always done live on a webinar platform called Zoom. If you follow us at Summers Wellness or the Essential Oils Education page on Facebook, you can RSVP for the class there, and the link to this broadcast to this class will always be there for you. So with that, let's go ahead and get this thing started. The first and most important thing to realize is about a third of Americans are not getting enough sleep every night. I can tell you, scientific research has also brought out the fact that women need more sleep than men, and teenagers need more sleep than adults. And as you can see, a lack of sleep can impact your immune system, your cardiovascular system. It can impact overall health. And it also has a very important barometer as to our ability to lose or maintain a healthy weight. We spend so much of our time sleeping that when we impact our ability to sleep, we're impacting a massive portion of our lives. All right, so like I said, I lifted these slides from the presentation from the doTERRA convention. You can see here who it was who put on that presentation for us at the doTERRA convention. If you want more information, I suggest you look up Russell Foster. He is a professor of circadian neuroscience. His presentation was undeniably fascinating. He went on for an hour about sleep on a topic that you would have thought would have put people to sleep, and he totally held everybody's interest and really made it something that I am not going to be able to do, that I'm not going to be able to do justice to in this shortened presentation. So when we talk about the amount of time we spend sleeping, 36% of our existence is spent asleep. That is more than work and our general activities combined. We're spending more than a third of our lives asleep. And when we don't get proper rest, we don't get proper sleep, this is why it is so detrimental to our overall health when you look at how much time we spend asleep. Looking at the circadian clock, and this is something that when you take a look at, logically, everything on this slide makes sense. So this is based upon your 24-hour circadian rhythm. During the night, look at core body temperature. Your core body temperature is low at night, and it's higher during the day, which is why it's of increased importance that your sleeping environment be cooler at night. It helps you fall into a deeper sleep and helps to continue to trigger the circadian clock. Urine production, lower at night than it is during the day. Otherwise, you'd be up and in the bathroom 4, 5, 6 times a night. Growth hormones, because your body's in a restoration mode, it's higher at night than it is during the day. So you can see throughout this whole process, all of this really makes perfect logical sense when you start to break down how your body functions at night versus during the day. So returning to core body temperature. If you look at a clock, your body temperature basically is running at 98.6 throughout most of the day. beginning at about 9 p.m., between 8 and 9 p.m., once the sun goes down, your body temperature starts to drop, which is why if you go to bed, let's say you go to bed 10, 11 o'clock at night, and maybe you go to bed and you're not cold at all. You're not chilly. You might, in fact, be a little warm. By about 3 o'clock in the morning, you're grabbing for the covers, because at that point, your body temperature has bottomed out, and you're starting to then rev back up to return to the 98.6 body temperature that you would be awake for. When you look at blood pressure, similar situation. You're running at a much higher blood pressure throughout the course of the day, and then by about 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, your blood pressure starts to drop, your circulation starts to slow, and until you ultimately bottom out between 3 and 4 in the morning before you start to raise your blood pressure naturally, getting your body ready to awaken. Coincidentally, when you look at this for blood pressure, as the blood pressure takes that sudden rise at around 6 o'clock in the morning, that's also the most common time for a stroke. Between 6 a.m. and noon, as your blood pressure has that sudden rise, that is statistically the most common time of day that people suffer a stroke, because you're coming out of a combination of a lower body temperature and a lower blood pressure. So as those two things rise simultaneously, your body clock's not in sync. So basically, if you've made it past about 11 a.m. to noon and you haven't had a stroke that day, you're pretty much out of the danger zone, which I found really interesting. And as I talked to a couple of people after we saw this presentation that have had family members that have had strokes, they all confirmed that their family members who had a stroke often had a stroke between 6 and 9 in the morning. So when we go back and look at the fact that we spend 36% of our time sleeping, we can now recognize why that's so important. So look at what happens to our body and our brains while we're sleeping. The brain is regulating growth. It's repairing itself. We're processing information. We're developing and implanting our memories. Our body is detoxing, removing waste and getting the waste products ready to be removed from the body. We're rebuilding our metabolism. We're replacing our energy reserves. And we are basically balancing our emotions. As we enter and leave dream states, that's actually been surmised that that's our emotional processing time. When we disrupt our sleep, short-term detriment of disruption of our sleep, loss of attention. I mean, if you've ever been up after a night of running around and partying and hanging out with friends and you start hitting that wall at 3 a.m. where people are trying to have a conversation with you and nothing is really processing, that's short-term sleep disruption. Memory impairment, loss and lack of empathy, reduced cognition. You see that, and that's also when a lot of automobile accidents tend to happen, is that 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. time, because you're into short-term sleep disruption. As that becomes a habit and your sleep disruption continues for longer periods of time, now you're risking diabetes. You have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, cancer risk, you're suppressing your immune system. All of these physical detriments really start to kick in. So when you look at the short-term disruption, a lot of that has to do with mental issues, cognitive issues, brain issues. The brain's not getting enough rest. As it stretches to long-term, now, in addition to all of the cognitive issues, all the mental issues, now you're getting into physical on the long-term sleep disruption. And when that long-term becomes chronic, then you start getting into psychiatric issues, which leads to mood instability, anxiety. You start getting into using sedatives, and you're using stimulants during the day. The big thing here to keep in mind is when we use unnatural means to interrupt and invade our natural sleep cycle, We are also basically destroying the resting cycle. There's a difference between sleep and rest. You can pop a prescription pill and get plenty of sleep. You can pop a series of prescription pills and get plenty of sleep. But if your body doesn't enter into a sleep state naturally, you're not receiving rest. You're just putting the body to sleep. It's kind of like running a car's engine on idle. The car is still running. You've never actually turned it off. Even though you're not driving on the highway, the car is still running. You're still burning fuel. And that's the case when you take artificial means to force sleep. You're not actually getting rest. This is going to be the slide that's hardest for me to interpret for you based upon pulling it out of a presentation. But this is important because as we look at how to regulate sleep, the newer studies have come out that are recognizing the fact that your visual cortex, your eyes, are actually as important as any other part of your body, if not more so, into restoring and regulating the circadian rhythms of your body clock. So this is why this gets important. Your eye communicates directly to the brain and can restart and reset the body clock. That body clock alters your sleep pressure. That's what determines your ability to fall asleep and stay asleep through the night. That sleep pressure is what regulates your body's internal alarm clock, telling you what time to wake up, what time to fall asleep. So if you throw it off by the wrong light levels that are coming in through your eyes, you can throw off this entire well-balanced system. Why is this important? Well, we found out that it takes between 3,000 and 5,000 lux. Light levels, if you did not already know, light levels are regulated by lux levels, L-U-X. Moonlight is 0.01 lux. A candle at 1 meter is 1 lux. A display or a museum display or a sunset is roughly 50 lux. Here's where it gets interesting. Remember we said 3,000 to 5,000 is what you need to regulate your body's internal clock. Most people are spending a significant amount of time in an office or in a home office, which is really only between 300 and 600 lux. Rarely stepping outside during the day to at least give the body and the eyes a significant amount of sunlight, which you can see full sun is about 100,000 lux. So we're falling far short of that 3,000 to 5,000 we need to reset the clock. This is the state that we are all facing. The elderly especially, because they're cooped up indoors for about 90% of their life, their poor sleep can be linked to poor light exposure. For people who work long hours, working night shifts, working office buildings, school teachers, the list goes on in the amount of careers where people are spending their entire existence indoors, away from the sun, in a lot of cases without even having an open window. So poor light exposure is completely altering our ability to reset our body clock. Here's a picture for you of what it's like in an old folks home, in an elderly center. Everything's in fluorescent lights. They're very rarely near a window or a door. They don't spend a lot of time outside. So that room, as well lit as it may be, is only approximately 2,000 lux. If the windows were open and they moved their meeting table over by the window, that would at least get them to 3,000, which would get them a lot closer to what they need to reset their body clock. The biggest issue, especially in the elderly, lack of sleep amongst the elderly has been attributed to an increased level of falling, increases in dementia, additional problems with Alzheimer's disease, lack of cognitive function, lack of memory, lack of appetite, all geared towards that lack of sleep as a trigger. So improving the elderly's ability to get restful night's sleep can improve their health across a wide spectrum of issues that they struggle with. So how do we improve our sleep? Well, these are kind of no-brainers. Exercise, primarily during morning and early afternoon hours when you get your energy level high, you can ride the endorphins longer, and then naturally start to drift off and get tired as the day goes on. Nutritional support, better quality foods, organic foods, natural foods. I know Jennifer is going to have more to say on that, especially on that part of this subject. Stress management. I am actually doing an entire week next week on stress, and next Sunday's class here is going to be on stress and anxiety. So we're going to get deeper into that throughout the next week. Good sleep hygiene. What's meant by that is consistency. Going to bed at the same time every night, waking up the same time every morning, keeping consistent with your sleep hygiene, keeping a proper and consistent dining schedule is part of good sleep hygiene as well. And then natural supplementation. Natural herbs, if you're going to use any kind of support for restful sleep, natural herbs, essential oils will all be beneficial for that. So let's talk about some essential oils for our wonderful world of sleep. And with that, if you guys want to add to this, feel free to unmute yourself, but I'll give you a few oils off the top of my head, of course, that are going to be kind of in our wheelhouse in regards to sleep. Of course, lavender. How could we not start the discussion with lavender? Nobody's surprised that it's at the top of the list. Everybody knows that lavender is related to sleep. It's been studied long term, and its effectiveness has been well documented. Vetiver. Plenty of people I know do not like the smell of vetiver, but its ability to help with a deep, restful night's sleep is kind of unparalleled. Lang Lang. It is very floral, more so than lavender, in my opinion. It also has almost an artificial fruitiness kind of smell. Lang Lang is also renowned for hormonal balance. So, and that's good for men and women. A lot of times, especially in ladies, when you are struggling with hormonal imbalances, sleep can fall by the wayside. Us guys tend to not even identify the fact that we have a hormonal imbalance, and we tend to ignore that kind of stuff. But Lang Lang can help regulate that. Sandalwood, both regular sandalwood and Hawaiian sandalwood, rich and woody, but it's also one that is very beneficial. A lot of your wood oils do tend to benefit sleep. Cedarwood is always in our wheelhouse. In fact, our regular combination until doTERRA released the new Serenity oil is lavender, cedarwood, and vetiver. That's our standard right there. And then you can also look at a couple of the spice oils, like marjoram is really good for sleep as well. Hoe wood is very good. So that's kind of our wheelhouse, some of the things that we've looked at that are great to aid in sleep as well. If you can get natural melatonin supplements, you're better off with a melatonin supplement than you would be with anything artificial. Just don't take melatonin daily, because you can start basically shutting down your body's ability to make it naturally when you've added that level of supplementation to it. So the more intermediate you can go and allow your body to do things naturally, the better off you are. Let's see. Oh, I just realized that Jennifer typed in that rest is as important as sleep. I don't know if you typed that before I said it, but yes, absolutely. All right, so if you guys have any questions, anything you want to add, go ahead and unmute yourself. I know Jen has a couple of things that she wants to add, because I always keep her from getting a good restful night's sleep.
Well, I mean, I don't know if I really have anything to add in particular, but I am one of those people that has always needed more sleep. 6 or 7 hours doesn't do it for me. I am usually really tired if that's all I get. So I'm good with, 8 or 9. 10 would be great, but I never get that. But it is so important, and I feel so much better after I've had plenty of sleep. I don't feel sluggish. I know there's such a thing as getting too much sleep. I don't think I've ever had that problem though. Hello?
Oops. I pulled a Dana. I kept myself too muted.
Yeah, I was wondering how I could only hear you from the living room.
All right, so B or Suzanne, Dwayne, do you guys have anything else you want to add?
When the doctor was speaking about strokes happening between 6 a.m. and 12, did he state any reason that he thinks that, whether it be that you're dehydrated from not drinking all night, or the blood could be sticky?
No, actually, the reason that he gave for it is in the fact that your blood pressure is rising rapidly. As your body clock is winding up to awaken, your blood pressure is rising very quickly as the heart is working that much harder and that much faster to suddenly get the body up from a horizontal position.
Oh, I see.
So it's you've got a blood drain that from basically laying in a prone position all night, and the brain has to work that much harder. The heart has to work that much harder to get the fluids pumping, and if you have a prolonged lack of blood flow to the brain, it can cause a stroke. Also, if you're not properly hydrated, that can definitely play a part, because then you're cutting down a fluid supply in the body nonetheless.
I thought strokes was caused from a blood clot, but
not always.
Okay.
There are a lot of reasons for a stroke, and a lot of them, to this point, strokes are still kind of shrouded in mystery. Like modern medical science can identify that a stroke has happened, but they can often not identify why.
Mm-hmm. Because in the emergency room, we give anti-clotting medications right away if the stroke happened within an hour or a heart attack. Well, stroke is basically a heart attack of the head.
Right, exactly.
And so they give streptokinase, which is an anticoagulant, as an emergency within an hour of it happening. So, and it gives better results. So that's
and I think so, in some cases they're doing that almost as a preventative to make sure that the blood is flowing more easily.
Mm-hmm. Like they try to get you to chew an aspirin or something like that.
Yeah.
First have a symptom of chest pain.
Oh, that's so nasty. I've done that once in my life.
It's so acid tasting, so bitter.
All right. We have any other questions before we end the recording? Comments? Anyone want to dance?
I'm just curious if anybody here has insomnia or has difficulty sleeping, staying asleep.
For me, it varies, and I think it just really kind of goes with what type of day I've had. So talking about stress next week is going to be really good. But I think the key is to identify when you are sleep deprived and, being able to pay attention to your body, because I think that's possibly what I was experiencing last week, well, over the past couple of weeks with my rapid palpitations. Mm-hmm. Because then I realized that, my focus was off. I just kind of just kind of woozy. It was just a really weird feeling. And so, sleep does play a big part in a lot of, what goes on. So when he mentioned cardiovascular, which, that was a key. So
for me, my biggest issue is
serenity.
And for me, my big issue is I can't turn the brain off.
Me either.
I'll go to bed, and for some reason, come 10 o'clock at night, 11 o'clock at night, all of a sudden my brain goes into strategy mode, and I'm trying to make sense of tomorrow and make sense of next week. And, that's like the worst time of day to try to strategize your life.
I know.
And that yet so many of us do that because we've turned the TV off. We're lying in what is essentially a meditative position, and we've eliminated the distractions otherwise that are coming into our senses. So now we've given ourselves the green light to say, all right, let's put all of our focus on this one mental activity.
Right.
And for me, when I start doing that, I can't shut that off. And that's where I have the biggest problem falling asleep. And that's what led me to taking sleeping pills for a while. It wasn't so much that I had a problem staying asleep. I just couldn't shut the brain off to fall asleep.
Well, you know what I found that has helped me? I have a sleep mask.
Yeah, Jennifer does too.
I have a sleep mask. I mean, you're not too manly to have a sleep mask, Evan.
I just take a Sharpie and I draw on my eyelashes, on my eyebrows, and my the eyelids. So that's my own personal blackout shade.
Okay.
But that's always been my issue, and I can tell you, I get a better night's sleep now that I don't take sleeping pills. I would say what used to be 20 to 25 days a month, I used to have to rely on some type of a sleeping pill, whether it was prescription or melatonin. Ever since we started diffusing oils in the bedroom every night, most nights I don't take anything. I just have the oils going, and I'm usually out in just about no time. And when I have taken, I'll take, if I'm not feeling particularly tired before bed, the brand new Serenity Complex that is coming out from doTERRA tomorrow, taking 2 of those 30 minutes before bed has been just quite literally a dream.
I like it.
Yeah, I've taken Ambien once in the last 3 weeks. And at that point, it was like 2.5, 3 hours in, and I just couldn't fall asleep. And I just gave up at that point and said, I at least need to get some sleep. But that's not bad once in 3 weeks compared to, 25 days a month.
Absolutely.
Now, if we could just get Evan's mom to sleep.
Yep, that's the next project, is getting my mom off of her sleep pills.
Yeah.
All right, Dwayne, what you got?
Well, I have the same problem you had, Evan, up until I started diffusing. But prior to that, I worked graveyard for 22 years. So that really messes your system up.
It totally does, especially, yeah.
I think studies has shown that it's about 8 years off your life average, and I don't doubt it. It's very hard to cope with it. You make a lot more money sometimes, but is it really worth it? But since I've been using lavender and then vetiver for about 2 weeks, the combo it's perfect for me.
There's very few people that do not get knocked out in a good way by the lavender vetiver combination. I've got one friend who her system's upside down. She actually gets hyper when she uses lavender. So what I suggested for her, and I'm waiting to hear back, for her, since lavender flips the switch and she gets hyper, I suggested that she diffuse a combination of orange and peppermint and see how that works. See if the peppermint has a relaxing effect, since lavender has a stimulating effect for her. And, orange It's an uplifting oil, but it's also mentally focusing. So if she can get a little bit of mental focus and physical relaxation, she might be able to use that combination instead of lavender and vetiver.
But you know, since I've started diffusing, over the years I've used melatonin before, which is a natural substance. Not that often, maybe once a week, but I have used regular sleeping pills, and there's always this hungover, drugged out effect for a couple hours, but not with diffusing.
No.
You know, within 15 or 20 minutes, I'm fine. And that's what got me on this journey to begin with. Somebody plugged the diffuser in a few months ago, says, try this. And it worked perfectly, and I've been hooked ever since.
That's so great to hear. I have the same thing. I used to complain. I didn't recognize it at first, but when I was taking prescription sleeping pills, I was a zombie for about 3 to 4 hours the next morning. And I just felt like I was just overtired from the night before. And it wasn't until I stopped taking those types of meds that I realized that it was those meds that were putting me into that zombie-like state. Sure, I was getting sleep, but I wasn't getting rest. So when I would wake up and try to function the next morning, I was not high functioning for the first 3 to 4 hours of the next day because my body was still craving the rest that I never gave it. We have a screaming cat.
That was interesting. The slide you had with the light in the eyes.
Yes.
There's studies on people that live up in Alaska, and you have light deprivation in the winter. In interior Alaska, practically none, and it's to the point they don't even want women to move to that environment. It's very hard on women.
We have a friend of ours who is an emergency dispatcher, and they are in Alaska. Antarctica. And it took a lot. Yeah, it took a lot of effort, a significant amount of effort and psychological testing and retesting in order for our friend and his wife to both go down there. And they're both dispatchers. And it was kind of a package deal. It's like, listen, if she doesn't go, I don't go. So, you know, make sure the testing goes right. And everything was fine the first couple of tours. And then every time they come back, they have to go through that whole rigmarole again. Because the psychological toll, the twist in light levels has on you it's palpable. It's something that can be easily measured. So yeah, that whole section on light was incredibly fascinating, and I wish I could do it justice. All right, so if we've got nothing else, let me go ahead and wrap up the recording. Thank you guys, as always, for being here. Please invite your friends. Every Sunday, 8 p.m. Eastern, we do this. It's on a platform called Zoom. That's what you're watching if you're watching the replay. You can join us at the Essential Oils education page or the Summers Wellness page on Facebook. I'll put a link on YouTube so you guys can reach out to us directly. Follow us there. Join us on Sundays. Invite your friends. Invite your family. These discussions are always designed to be brand neutral. We will occasionally drift into conversations that include brand names. That's never by design. We'd love to see you with us next week and weeks going forward. Next Sunday, we're talking about stress and anxiety. Sadie may or may not be here for closed captioning. Right now, she's yelling because it's time for her to eat. You guys have a great Sunday and a great week.